Before the bombs fell, before the world plunged into chaos, there was a solitary voice that spoke of peace, a deep, spiritual peace, but also an urgent one. He was not a politician, not a general. He was a thinker, a forgotten prophet. His name? Martin Buber. As the drums of war echoed across Europe, Buber warned, the coming crisis was not merely military, it was human and spiritual. Today we revisit his message, and you'll understand why it matters more than ever. Have you ever heard of Martin Buber? Do you believe the world can still hear voices like his? Write in the comments, I believe in peace, if you too feel that there is still hope. Or share your thoughts. What would Buber say to our world today? The best comments may appear in our next video. What can the world still learn from him? The importance of listening to spiritual voices before it's too late. In every generation, God raises a voice crying in the wilderness, calling people to repentance, to watchfulness, to faith. But so often, we ignore it. So often, we cover our ears, harden our hearts, and delay what God asks for now. How many tragedies could have been avoided if we had listened to spiritual voices? How many lives spared? How many tears unshed if the world hadn't mocked the warnings from heaven? This man, whose story you'll now discover, was one of those voices. He spoke, he wept, he warned, he prayed. Not with human words, but with the weight of someone carrying a divine burden. Yet still many ignored him. Only after the pain, only after the loss did people begin to listen. But what about us? Will we wait until tragedy knocks at our door to recognize God's signs? Or will we open our eyes and ears now while there is still time? This video is not just a story, it's a call from heaven to all those who still believe. If you feel God is speaking to you today, write it in the comments. Affirm your faith, proclaim your hope, declare that you will not ignore God's voice. Lord, I hear your voice and follow your lead. There is still time for those who believe. Or simply, speak, Lord, your voice is my light. Be one of those voices. Be light in the darkness. Be the one who listens before the storm comes. Because those who hear the Spirit's voice are never caught by surprise. Are we ignoring today's Bubers? Who are the forgotten prophets of our generation? Imagine living in a time when a man stood before crowds and cried out, collapse is coming, faith is dying, the world is on the edge of the abyss. That man existed. His name may have been Karl Barth or Dietrich Bonhoeffer or Abraham Joshua Heschel. But today, let's talk about Jacques Ellul, Oswald Chambers, Reinhold Niebuhr, and yes, Martin Buber, the Jewish philosopher and mystic who warned, the true catastrophe of our time is the loss of the thou, the loss of deep relationship with the other and with God. Today, many are sounding the alarm again. But are we listening? Spiritual influencers, Christian thinkers, Jewish sages, even morally conscious atheists, all share a similar message. We are dying inside. We are losing our soul. Technology connects us but isolates. Wealth increases, but faith declines. Information multiplies, but discernment vanishes. The mind is fed, but the spirit starves. Can you hear the cries? Pastors, psychologists, professors, even scientists are saying, the collapse will not just be economic, it will be moral, spiritual, human. But who is listening? Or are we repeating the mistake of past generations who ignored their Bubers, their Jeremiahs, their Johns in the wilderness? Maybe God is still raising up voices today, but we're so distracted, we can't even recognize the call anymore. What do you think about this? Declare that you still believe, that you still listen, that you still hope in God, even when the world seems to fall apart. I still believe God is speaking. Even in the chaos, my faith remains strong. Or create your own declaration of faith and then inspire others to do the same. Who knows? In the midst of darkness, your words in the comments might be the torch that reignites someone's faith. Who knows? Among the ignored voices of today, maybe you are being raised as a voice that awakens. Do not be silent. Do not sleep. Do not ignore the signs. What he predicted became reality. The words of Buber and the tragedy of the century Martin. Buber, one of the greatest Jewish thinkers of the 20th century, was not a prophet in the traditional sense, but his words, spoken long before the bombs fell, before the camps were built, before tears became the language of a people, already seemed to see the darkness coming. Buber spoke of a world that had forgotten the thou, the other, the sacred, the human. For him, when man turns his neighbor into an object, when he stops seeing the other's face as the image of the divine, the seeds of barbarity are sown, and that's exactly what happened. Even before the rise of Nazism, Buber was warning about the dangers of a civilization that valued technical progress but lost its soul. He said that true relationship, the kind that connects us to God and to one another, was being replaced by relationships of use, power, and domination. And then came the Holocaust. 6 million Jews murdered, a world in ruins. Human dignity turned to ashes. And Buber's words echoed, as if they already knew. Where man no longer encounters the thou, the world becomes mute. In the darkness of the camps, many lost their faith. But others found it again, in the silence, in the suffering, in the hope of a God who seemed absent, but revealed himself in the embrace of a fellow prisoner, in the shared bread, in the silent gaze of one who still believed. Buber believed that God reveals himself in the true relationship between two human beings, that even in the face of absolute evil, we could still find meaning in listening, in love, in spiritual resistance. And today, we live in times of new noise, new dehumanization, new coldness. Buber's words are still alive. They are still a warning, a calling. Now it's up to you. If you believe that faith can endure even in the deepest darkness, if you believe that love is stronger than hate, if you feel that God still speaks, even in the silence of suffering, let's turn the comment section into a space of light, resistance, and testimony. Because if Buber saw the tragedy approaching, we today can announce redemption, a profound message for times of darkness. We live in times when evil seems to spread like a shadow over the world. Violence, indifference, selfishness, wars, division. Humanity seems to have forgotten that behind every face there is a soul. Martin Buber, in his work, I and Thou, offers us a powerful response to this chaos. The true relationship with the other as an act of faith, redemption, and resistance to evil. Buber affirms that the world is lost when the other is treated as an object, as an it, a thing. And that is exactly what evil does. It turns human beings into something disposable, into someone without a face, without value, without a soul. It trains us to look at others with indifference, like a number, like an enemy, like someone who doesn't matter. But there is another path, the path of I and Thou. On this path, the other ceases to be an object and becomes a sacred presence before me, a mirror of the image of God, someone who looks at me, touches me, challenges me. In this encounter, something divine happens. Reality is transformed. God's presence is revealed between us. Buber said, all real living is meeting, and it is in this encounter that we overcome evil. Not with weapons, not with hate, but with the courage to look at the other with love, with faith, with humanity. So today, I invite you to reflect. How many times have you looked at someone merely as an it? How many times have you been treated as an object, and it wounded your soul? How many times has evil tried to extinguish your light, making you forget that you are the living image of the Creator? Now is the time to react. Not with anger, but with deep love. Start seeing the other as a thou. If this message touched your heart, write a declaration of faith in the comments. Say it out loud, and write in the comments, love is my answer to evil. I choose to see the other as a child of God. Nothing will make me treat another person as an object. I was born to love. Lord, open my eyes to see others with your light. Let's create a chain of light in the comments. A community of people who believe in the power of true relationship, in love as an act of resistance, and in faith as an answer to despair. Because in the end, evil does not win where there is love. Evil cannot survive where there is a true I and thou. Few listened, fewer understood. But Martin Buber, the great Jewish thinker, had already sensed it in his spirit. Something dark was coming. Before the bombs fell, before the camps became silent tombs of hope, before World War II shattered the soul of humanity, Buber raised his voice with prophetic courage. He was not speaking only to the Jews, he was speaking to all humanity. His plea was clear: unite, stay awake, strengthen yourselves spiritually. Today, more than 80 years later, his words echo with renewed power. The world is once again restless. Wars, divisions, hatred, and fear fill the headlines. But are we listening? Have we learned from history? Martin Buber reminded us that faith is not just belief. It is action, communion, and spiritual resistance in the face of darkness. He cried out for an awakened people, not just with open eyes, but with hearts connected to God, to one another, and to the truth. This video is a call for deep reflection. It is a warning. It is a call to return to what matters most. To living, faith, to genuine prayer, to brotherly love, to spiritual vigilance. Leave your declaration of faith in the comments. Write with courage, declare from the heart. I believe in the light even in times of darkness. My faith is my fortress. United in prayer, I resist evil. I watch, I pray, I stand firm. Peace begins within me. May God strengthen us. May this video be a spiritual awakening. May it rekindle the flame of resistance in you. May it remind you that in times of war, the true weapons are faith, unity, and watchfulness. Watch until the end. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, Buber spoke, so that today you will not remain silent. Few listened, even fewer understood. But Martin Buber, the great Jewish thinker, had already sensed it in his spirit. Something dark was approaching. Before the bombs fell, before the camps became silent graves of hope, before World War II shattered the soul of humanity, Buber raised his voice with prophetic courage. He wasn't speaking only to the Jews, he was speaking to all of humanity. His message was clear: unite, watch, strengthen yourselves spiritually. Today, more than 80 years later, his words echo with renewed force. The world is once again restless. Wars, division, hatred, and fear fill the headlines. But are we listening? Have we learned from history? Martin Buber reminded us that faith is not just belief. It is action, communion, and spiritual resistance in the face of darkness. He called for an awakened people, not only with open eyes, but with hearts connected to God, to one another, and to truth. This video is an invitation to deep reflection. It is a warning. It is a call to return to what is essential: living faith, genuine prayer, brotherly love, and spiritual vigilance. Leave your statement of faith in the comments. Write with courage, declare with your heart. I believe in the light even in times of darkness. My faith is my fortress. United in prayer, I resist evil. I watch, I pray, I stand firm. Peace begins within me. May God strengthen us. May this video be an awakening. May it rekindle the flame of spiritual resistance in you. May it remind you that in times of war, the true weapons are faith, unity, and vigilance. Watch to the end. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, Buber spoke, so that today you would not remain silent. Buber's warning to the Jewish people and to the world, a call to unity, vigilance, and spiritual resistance before the war. In times of growing darkness, when the winds of war began to blow across Europe, Martin Buber raised his voice like a watchman in the tower. He was not a politician, He was not a general. He was a man of faith, a thinker, a modern-day prophet. Buber saw the world slowly sinking into division, hatred, and dehumanization. And even before the bombs exploded and the fields were stained, with innocent blood he already knew. The real battle was spiritual. Evil does not begin with gunfire. It begins with silence, with alienation, with a heart that grows cold. That's why Buber issued a call. Not a call to arms, but a call for the spiritual awakening of an entire people. He called the Jews, and all people of faith, to unity, inner vigilance, and resistance of the soul against the forces of darkness. He said, "Before we resist on the outside, we must unite within. We must rekindle the light that God has placed in us." Today, so many years later, these words burn more than ever. We live in a divided, weary world on the brink of spiritual collapse, but Buber's warning has not lost its power. It echoes now, for all of us. Unite, for loneliness weakens, but communion strengthens. Be vigilant, for evil approaches stealthily when spiritual eyes are shut. Resist spiritually, for the greatest battles are not fought with swords but with faith, love, and the courage to remain in God. And now, it's up to you. In the comments, write your statement of faith. Make this space a living altar of hope. Let the world know you are not asleep, that you heard the call. Right from the heart, I stand firm in faith, even in difficult times. May God's light shine in me amid the darkness. I will not be overcome by fear. The Lord is my strength. United in faith and prayer, I resist evil. Awake, watchful, and full of the Spirit, this is how I walk. This video is more than a story. It is a call for you to awaken, to watch, to unite, to resist. Because the wars on the outside are reflections of the wars inside the human soul. And whoever wins in spirit will not be defeated by the world. May this message inspire you. May it reignite the flame of faith within you. May it strengthen you for the days to come. A reflection that could change how you see the world. We live in a wounded world. A world where evil is not only expressed through visible violence, but also through the coldness of hearts, the indifference in our eyes, and the forgetting that every person carries something sacred within. Martin Buber, in his powerful work, I and Thou, teaches us something simple, yet transformative. The world is lost when the other is treated as an object. When we stop seeing the other as a thou, a being with a soul, with pain, with dreams, with value, and begin seeing them as merely an it, an obstacle, a thing, evil begins to win. That's when darkness advances, when the gaze loses compassion, when speech loses respect, when touch loses tenderness. But there is another path, a path of faith, a path of true relationship, a path where every human encounter becomes a space of redemption. According to Buber, God dwells in the space between the I and the thou. That is, when we look at the other with love, dignity, and presence, we are not just being human, we are being sacred. We are resisting evil with the most powerful weapon there is, communion, because love is the greatest force against dehumanization. So today, I invite you into a spiritual movement. Stop for a moment. Think of someone you've been treating as an it, someone you ignore, judge, reject, or have simply forgotten. Now imagine that person as a thou, a being full of light, pain, and stories, a mirror of the divine image. Imagine if thousands of people decided today to change the way they see others. Imagine if, instead of hate, bridges were built. If instead of indifference, helping hands were extended. If instead of judgment, compassion arose. That world is not far away. It begins now, in you. May your faith not be just prayer, but also relationship. May your spirituality not be an escape from the world, but an embrace of the other. May you have the courage to live the I and Thou as an act of revolution against evil.